Hello, I am Carol Rosen. Being a member of InSight through education is very exciting and rewarding. It was a privilege and a joy to serve with Sandy Trockman as the founding co-presidents of InSight in 2010. Though established only 10 years ago, there are currently 39 members on our board of directors and 1,100 names on our contact list. I'd like to acknowledge and thank all the incredible, dedicated volunteers and sponsors who have spent countless hours planning and executing engaging programs and successful fundraisers. Through their efforts over the past 10 years, InSight is proud to have awarded over $1 million in educational grants and community outreach programs. Recently, at the opening of the exhibition marking the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau in New York City, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres gave a passionate speech.
We meet in the General Assembly of the United Nations today to commemorate the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau, to remember the 6 million Jews and many others who were murdered by the Nazis and their collaborators during the Holocaust, and to recommit to preventing any repetition of those crimes. There is a global crisis of anti-Semitic hatred, a constant stream of attacks targeting Jews, their institutions, and property. Around the world, we have seen Jews murdered in synagogues, their gravestones defaced with swastikas, Christians killed at prayer, their churches torched, and Muslims gunned down in mosques, their religious sites vandalized. Like the soldiers, we are revolted by the horrific details of Auschwitz. But it is our duty to look and to continue looking, to learn and to relearn the lessons of the Holocaust so that it is never repeated. Remembrance and education are an essential part of our prevention efforts because ignorance creates fertile ground for false narratives and lies. As we work to live up to the promise of never again, we need to examine our own prejudices, guard against the misuse of our own technology, and be alert to any signs that hatred is being normalized.
We at InSight will continue to fund educational programs that tell the story over and over and over again. Bigotry, prejudice, and hatred are not acceptable. Please enjoy the video as InSight past presidents share the highlights of our extraordinary history. To the current leadership, Nancy Cook and Linda Berlin, we wish you great success in all your future endeavors.
Hello, my name is Sandy Trockman. I had the pleasure of working with Carol in the creation of InSight through education. This was a passion for both of us. We knew we would have to find ways to make it recognized by the schools and the community. With Palm Beach County School District's acceptance of our mission, we had to find a way to establish how serious we were about raising funds for educational purposes. We needed a program that would make a big splash. Fortunately, we knew about the children's opera Brunderbar, which had been performed 55 times in the Theresienstadt concentration camp during World War II. It was now being performed around the country, and Ella Weisberg, who had performed the part of the cat in all 55 performances, was traveling to speak to audiences about her miraculous experience and survival.
How did the Nazis manage to kill 6 million Jews and keep so much of the world in the dark? Part of the answer is in our story tonight. It concerns a concentration camp called Theresienstadt. It was in Czechoslovakia, and near the end of the war, the Nazis used it to con the world. So they took this one camp, Theresienstadt, and turned it, if ever so briefly, into a model town. Central to the deception was the performance of a children's opera called Brunderbar. The opera survived the war, and so did a few members of its cast. The Nazis filmed this performance in 1944. The lead role, the part of Blunderbar, was played by a boy named Hansa Treichlinger. He's the kid with the mustache.
Everybody loved him, and everybody adored him.
Back then, Ella Weisberger played the cat.
I wore my sister's ski pants and my mother's sweater, black sweater. This was my costume.
Wearing a costume was a relief from what Ella and the other kids had to wear all the time in the camp.
This was the only time that they said we don't have to put on the Jewish stuff.
We knew that the opera had been performed in Evansville, Indiana, and in St. Louis, Missouri, and we had contacts in both communities to teach us how to bring it to Florida. One of our supporters, Barbara Golden, was on the Kravis Board of Directors, and her position was the Education Committee. And next we contacted the director of the Palm Beach Philharmonic Music Department. Both he and Barbara agreed that this was a good project and came on board to work with InSight. Then the Palm Beach County Schools Music Department joined us and worked with the Philharmonic to produce Brunderbar with a student cast. There were 2 student performances and a large community performance at the Kravis Center. We had made the statement we intended. InSight was on its way. As a founding member, I want to emphasize our work is not done. Hate is not dead. We must continue to teach the lessons learned from the Holocaust.
Hello everyone, I'm Roz Louie. In spring of 2012, Carol and Sandy placed the gavel in my hands. I committed my role as president to pay it forward with unwavering dedication to InSight's mission. There are so many happenings that occurred during the ensuing 3 years. In 2012, we established a reserve account to be untouched, ensuring InSight's status as a 501(c) among charity listings nationally. As president, I gifted the InSight video to be used to educate audiences and reinforce our brand. I wrote and directed survivors Norman Frajman and Zelda Fuchsman and teachers to explain and communicate the important work of InSight and its mission. You can view that video on our website. In 2013, the first newsletter was distributed honoring Ibby Lucas, our arugula lady, InSight's treasure for her continuing generosity and culinary talents. In 2013, the Palm Beach County Board of Education awarded InSight the first of several certificates of appreciation for funding educational grants of over $120,000 each year to the public school system, grades K through 12. In 2014, InSight was named a Center of Excellence, one of only 14 in the United States, by the Jewish Foundation of the Righteous in New York City, granted this honor by Executive Vice President Stanley Stahl. To date, 14 selected middle and high school teachers from Palm Beach County became Learner Fellows, funded by InSight to attend seminars at Columbia University and meet international Holocaust teachers. Also in 2014, survivor Gerda Weissman-Klein, recipient of the Medal of Freedom at age 90 by President Obama, told her story to 500 students at a Student Awareness Day and to the public audience that evening at EC about her Oscar award-winning documentary of her story and her marriage to her American liberator. And in 2014, InSight partnered with Tracy Butler and the Star Series at Kravis Center to offer teacher seminars and multiple dramatic presentations to 1,500 students at each performance. The highlight of 2014 was the fundraising event at Kravis of Light, the Holocaust and Humanity Project, a ballet choreographed by Stephen Mills, the artistic director of the Austin Ballet Company. Stephen spent 18 months researching the Holocaust and Naomi Warren's survivor story, his inspiration, culminating in a breathtaking ballet with music composed by Philip Glass. In 2015, I accompanied the student trip to the United States Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. Local survivor Frida Jaffe, who shared her story with the students, was my roommate. The D.C. trip was a life-changing experience for 22 students and was thrilling for me to witness. In 2015, it was a joy and so exciting to share the year as co-president with very capable Anita Naftali.
I'm Anita Naftali, and I've had the honor of working with two co-presidents between 2014 and 2017. First, serving with Roz Louie, I appreciated her professionalism and her great business sense. A highlight for me with Roz was visiting Royal Palm Beach High School and hearing its chorale perform an Israeli song at Ani Ma'amin, which was the song sung by camp prisoners, expressing hope and faith. The chorale was composed of African American students who had studied the Holocaust. It was very poignant and brought tears to my eyes, especially when they performed at our installation too. Highlight of my wonderful co-presidency with Edie Broida was 2015 to 2017. It was launching the I-Series with its impressive array of speakers. A pleasure working with Edie as we shared fresh ideas and always supported each other. We began with those who exhibited acts of courage. My most memorable was Dr. Leon Bass, 88 years old, who shared his experience as a 19-year-old sergeant in the Army's African American Battalion in World War II. He arrived at Buchenwald when it was liberated, witnessing firsthand the horrors of the Holocaust. It inspired him to become a teacher and activist who spoke out against prejudice and racism. He was a gentle, wise man who inspired all of us. Another hero was Alan Small, who, just 14 years old, became a partisan fighter in the Polish forest.
My parents had realized that they were leading people out of their ghetto. And one of the stories my dad told me is that they heard that they'd taken 5,000 of the Jewish people in the town.
They had all the Jewish men from 16 to 60 report in the marketplace, and they picked out 220 men, all the teachers and medical staff, the business people, and my father was one of them. And they took him out about a mile and a half from our house, and they shot every one of them.
We decided that we are going to organize ourselves and leave for the forest and fight against the Nazis and take revenge for our loved ones.
Approximately 30,000 Jews escaped the German ghettos and camps during World War II, forming or joining organized armed resistance groups. They were known as Jewish partisans. Jewish partisans saved thousands of lives while sabotaging German trains and convoys. Partisans were active in 10 countries throughout Europe, helping contribute to the end of World War II.
14 when I joined the partisans. And I would say the brigade must have at least around 1,000 members.
They're not soldiers, they weren't soldiers. My wife wasn't a soldier, she was 14 years old. I was 70 years old.
They had decided that rather than be led to slaughter, that they were going to go out fighting. And if they got killed, they got killed. I mean, they made a point of trying to save as many people as possible. They weren't only looking after their own lives.
The Frieder brothers, owners of a cigar factory in the Philippines, who were able to rescue 1,300 Jews by bringing them to the Philippines. Stanley Stahl from the Jewish Foundation for the Righteous told stories of how righteous Gentiles saved many Jews from death camps. We also had Dr. Peter Hayes, history professor and author of the highly regarded book, Why? Explaining the Holocaust. InSight has also made it possible for students at Oak Hammock School in Port St. Lucie to meet with members of child survivors and hidden children. With their teacher, Belkis Madeira, they created a permanent Holocaust museum of student artwork related to their studies. It's a powerful display. Visitors are always moved by the experience, which shows the survivors' lost childhood and their resilience. Also, it is a life-changing experience for students to interact with the survivors. Over the years, it's been incredible working with many dedicated educators. So I was very pleased when my friends started the Naphtali Fund to commemorate a special occasion. We continued it as the Naphtali Award to recognize outstanding educators annually, such as Maureen Carter, Maureen Holzer, and Belkis Madero. Grateful to them for their expertise, and commitment in fulfilling our InSight mission. I am so proud of InSight and all that it has accomplished during these 10 years. May it go from strength to strength to help make this world a better place for all of us.
A truly memorable event during my watch was the children of Williston Lane. Mona Golobeck had written the story of her mother's escape on the Kindertransport. She was a gifted pianist, and she managed to continue her studies in spite of the war. Mona wanted her mother's story to be told and remembered, and then wrote her memoir, The Children of Williston Lane. Then she added a beautiful musical accompaniment.
I had the most amazing mother. Her name was Lisa Yura. My mother taught me the piano. And in the piano lessons, she always told me how, Mona, each piece of music tells a story.
Mona is the daughter of a Jewish woman from Vienna who dreamt of becoming a concert pianist.
200 boys and girls wave a greeting to England, land of the free.
But her dreams were disrupted by the arrival of the Nazis. Lisa was sent to London on the Kindertransport, the trains that brought Jewish refugee children to the UK.
She never forgot what her mother told her at the train station. Hold on to your music, it'll be your best friend in life.
Now Mona is playing her mother in a West End play inspired by Lisa's memoirs. It's based on a book that Mona wrote called The Children of Williston Lane, which tells the story of Lisa's life in London as a piano teacher after her escape from the Nazis.
And my mom would always tell me about these 30 refugee children just like herself. These kids, like any other kids growing up, but different because they had been separated from their families and they never knew if they were going to see their families again. I would like to think somewhere that the spirit of Lisa Yura, wherever she is in this universe, is smiling down and really, really tickled.
InSight arranged for Mona to perform The Children of Williston Lane at the Maltz Jupiter Theater. Hundreds of students attended 3 performances, followed by a grand evening benefit for InSight supporters. It was a terrific success. However, these performances were not without complications. Our planning involved consulting the school calendar, creating a study guide for teachers, and arranging busing schedules. Fortunately, I had wonderful support from my co-president, Anita Naphtali, and Barbara Hurwitz, who handled the Maltz arrangements. Anita and I had also collaborated on the iSeries. We had decided that since there was the iPad and the iPhone, we would create the iSeries. It included memorable speakers such as Dr. Bert Wolschlanger, whose father was a Nazi, Michael Rose and Carole King, who exposed Henry Ford's extreme anti-Semitism, and Gerda Weisberg Klein during her last public appearance. Her story always brought tears. She was a concentration camp survivor who had married the American soldier who had liberated her. Then there was James Grimes, who told us about the violence of hope, and the esteemed Michael Berenbaum and Alexandra Zabruder, both with significant presentations related to the Holocaust Museum. How wonderful that so many students heard these speakers in their classrooms. Another InSight highlight was the Lady in Gold. Anne Marie O'Connor, an investigative reporter, had written a bestseller about the recovery of a rare Klimt painting. She and Hannah Lessing, who represented the Austrian government, spoke at the Rinker Auditorium, telling about the painting's recovery, and of course they also spoke at classrooms. I feel very proud of all that InSight has accomplished in these 10 years.
Good evening. I am Barbara Hurwitz, and I have the privilege of being co-president for InSight Through Education with Roberta Weiner from 2018 to 2019. One of the most memorable times in my life was helping to produce the fundraising event for that year, bringing both the composer, Dr. Albert Hurwitz, and the mentor and guest conductor, Michael Lancaster, to the stage. Albert Hurwitz Symphony No. 1, Remembrance, was performed by the Palm Beach Symphony and was held at the EC Campus Theater at Palm Beach State College in Palm Beach Gardens. As part of our continuing grant program, hundreds of Palm Beach County's public school and Palm Beach State College students were invited to meet Dr. Hurwitz at a student concert and at a symposium to hear the beautiful music he composed. He told the story of his family's immigration from Russia to America, while showing slides of the family and sharing selections of the symphony. It was a memorable experience for the students, and they were able to ask meaningful questions during this time together. The evening of the benefit included discussion by Dr. Hurwitz about how he came to retire from a career in medicine to write this symphony. He vividly told the audience his family's immigration story, which was the inspiration for writing the piece of music that has captured audiences throughout the United States. It was a magical evening, and I was so happy to be part of it in such a meaningful way. Being part of the InSight family is an extraordinary experience, working together with hundreds of people who share our mission and goals to educate student populations about the lessons learned from the Holocaust and genocides worldwide. We instill in these children the reason to be upstanders, not bystanders, when they see injustice being committed, and they learn to not tolerate these occurrences in our lives, in our schools, community, and nation. Our mission will go forward and reach more and more young people who will carry this message on for the future. I am so proud to be part of this dedicated group.
We had a very exciting year, 2019 to 2020. The President's Council. The leadership was comprised of Anita, Barbara, and Edie Broida, who is not with us today. She's out of town. But we wanted very much to have a consistency for that year for all of us, and it was really a pleasure for the four of us to work together. We managed to do many things to forward InSight's mission, and we all stand very proudly about all of our contributions to making InSight what it is today.